And welcome back to another episode of JP and the Beanstalk.
You bet. And there is a phenomenal energy in the gym. We're in it. You're sleeveless. So
I am.
free tickets to the gun show for me and everybody that's watching. What an absolute delight.
And for those listening,
Can you hear it?
they're big. Yes.
Arms for radio.
I'm.
Wait, no,
That's backwards.
that's not what I want. It's not what I was trying to convey.
Compare me to a male model.
There you go.
Yes.
Yes, that. Arms of a mannequin? That's actually, that'd be kind of, mannequins are cut.
Yeah, but they don't move. Like, I don't know.
I'm not saying you're stiff. I'm not saying you're stiff. I'm saying from a definition perspective, it needs work. All right, the labeling needs work. I'm sorry, bad friend. I'll work on it.
It's okay.
I'll work on
It's
it.
hot enough to be wearing a sleeveless shirt, so
It
you
is.
can just enjoy
It is.
that.
How great is that? What a great problem to have.
And by the way, let's get this out of the way now.
Okay.
By the time this episode gets out, our
Yes.
buddy Soul will have been married. And I feel like we should give him
you're
a special
right.
congratulations
You bet.
on the marriage.
Yep.
I'm assuming at this point it all went well, and if it didn't,
Let's say that it did.
we'll take it out.
Let's assume that it did. That's the beauty of editing. Right?
Either way, we'll have a fun night. Okay, I promise.
Saul, we're so excited to celebrate with you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity
This
to
is
celebrate
true.
with you.
High honor,
what a
sir.
delight.
High honor.
What a delight. I'm also going to throw this out there because my wife, right, friend of the pod, in name only, because she never listens to the pod, but
Right.
nonetheless, we have a mutual friend who tends to go to bed early. All right, that's going to be at this wedding tomorrow.
Yeah.
The over under, and so I'm really just throwing this out there.
Oh,
for
you
your
guys
enjoyment.
betting?
Yes.
Can I get some of this action?
Yes.
Is it on 8?
If it's later than 8 o'clock, I will be astounded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you bet under, she bet over?
I don't think either of us have officially placed our bets. I'm going to go under.
Okay.
Definitely under. It probably needs to be more precise than that, or it will need to be, but that's where I'm at.
Like
Definitely
I said,
under 8.
I didn't know if it was going to be like betting an over-under at a specific time, or
Yes.
each person was just going to guess a time,
Yes.
and Price of Right rules it.
It probably needs to be that. I think it'll be a game time decision. Like internally, when we're in the reception hall, we'll have to. So I'd like time to marinate on this, right? I think we all need some time to.
I just want a piece of that action.
You're in. Oh, you're in. Yeah, you're in. And if you're the spouse of this friend that's listening, that is a genuine friend of the pod, just know that we cherish both of you.
It's all love.
It is
all
love. And also strangely respect the dedication to go to bed at such a consistent time.
Bro, I can't blame you though.
No.
I can't blame you. I'm
No.
tired, but
Right.
my body doesn't shut down till like 12:30.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
and then refuses to get up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, Saul, we're stoked for you. Jocelyn, we're excited for you because you're marrying Saul. Good on you. That's great.
I've never met your home dog, but you seem like a cool lady.
You gotta be. You gotta be.
If you're with Soul, you gotta be.
You gotta be. So we're excited for that. Good call out on your point or on your part. That's outstanding.
Yes, I thought we needed to get that out of the way.
Yep. There's no doubt.
Hopefully he'll be listening to this on the plane to his honeymoon.
Yes. This is really, you know what? Okay. I will give a genuine wedding gift. I will. But consider this the real gift right here. This episode.
We're about to drop bars. We're going to go all out, pull out all the stops.
I love that. What would be your let's keep it wedding theme.
Oh
right?
boy.
Let's keep it wedding theme.
Great.
All right.
Selena Gomez.
Sure. Yes.
Is that the question?
It's not the question.
Oh,
it's not the question. Let's go.
Did I answer that too fast?
No.
Okay.
No. This is going to be really good. Okay. So we got wedding theme. We also obviously on this pod are going to discuss Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because it just came out this week. We saw it. We're blown away by it. So can't wait to discuss that topic. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of that topic, which member of the Guardians would you crash a wedding with?
Oh, crash a wedding with?
Crash a wedding with. Yep. So which member of the Guardian are you going to crash a wedding with? Which member of the Guardians are you taking with you as a date to a wedding? Okay. So, two-part question. I wonder if I can come up with a third part here on the fly.
Okay, well, we only have what, 2 options for a date for aren't there only 2? Oh, no, there's 3
No,
options.
no, there's more. There's more.
There's 3 options.
And frankly, like it can be a platonic mandate, right? It could be. Or if it's a plus one, no one says you have to bring a romantic date.
I know, but that's no fun. For me anyways.
Okay. Okay. So crash, take on a date, and oh, okay. Who out of the Gardens would you want to give your best man speech?
Okay.
There you go. I feel really good about that 3.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, crashing the wedding date. There's 2 options here.
Yep.
And I will give you the one that I know you're going to say, and I will defer to the other one, and I'm going to say Rocket Raccoon
Good for you.
because that dude is going to be hopefully stealing prosthetics for me, and then we just watch people dance on one limb because that would be hilarious.
And he is a willing and gifted liar. And so he will have no qualms about hyping you up, right? Whatever your story is, right? Whatever your alibi, your alias, he's in.
True.
He's an outstanding partner in crime.
And also, at some point, we'll get full control over the music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your
So
pick is a great one. I hadn't even considered Rocket.
Rocket would be
It's a
fantastic.
great pick. I mean, mine is Drax.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm crashing with Drax. It's going to go badly. It's not going to go well. Drax is going to blow our cover. And it's either, well, here's the thing. It's either going to go very badly because he is going to blow our cover. That part is almost definitely happening. The question will be, is his thick-headedness charming enough in the sense that, empathy is given to us and we're such a delightful pair that we're allowed to stay and partake in the festivities? Or are they just disgusted with our brazen intrusion on their special day and been like, the door is that way? It's entirely possible, but I'm excited for whichever way it goes. It'd be
Tables
great.
will break.
That's the thing. If they try and kick us out, Drax fights. Now we have tables flipping. It's memorable one way or the other. And if Drax if we don't get kicked out, tables are still getting flipped because that's how Drax is going to party. So it's just great. Okay. Yep, good choice. Wedding date?
That's a tough one. Because all of the women are crazy. I mean, that's just true in all facts of life. But
So you're never going to have a wedding date.
I just
Which-
love digging myself in a
Oh
hole.
my gosh. Goodness.
Kidding.
Well, your hole
Calm down.
is dug.
Calm down.
While you stay in your hole, I'm going with Mantis because she would be a delight. She'd be a hoot. She'd be a hoot. She'd
Yeah.
be by far the most fun to spend
She would
time
be
with.
the most civil. I would probably pick Gamora.
Okay.
But
Which is an admirable choice.
yeah.
Yep.
I never mind. We'll just move on.
Okay. Best man speech. Who you got?
Probably Peter. Probably Peter Quill.
Okay.
I think it'd be hard not to. That dude's come up with speeches before. We've seen it. So you know it's going to be good.
Yep. Yep. It's a fine answer. It's the wrong answer, but it's a fine answer. The right answer is Groot.
I was going to say that as a
Because
joke.
It's the short. That's what you want. You don't need somebody to. You don't want somebody diatribing while everybody else is going. I'd really like to just eat some more and get back to the good stuff.
Yeah, but what if he says I am Groot like 25 times?
Possible.
Because he gets emotional up there.
Yeah, I don't think he would. I think he is a tree of few words, and I'm counting on it being 3 I am Groots at most. So that's my choice. I am Groot.
Yeah, no, that's solid choice.
You get your Peter.
Solid choice. Yes.
Great. Well, that's a lot of fun. Saul, Jocelyn, really congratulations, or late, I guess, since you'll be listening to this a few days after.
Perfectly timed, if
Gift.
you ask
The
me.
gift is still there. So, well, let's get into it. We're here to talk Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We're going to talk about that for a good long while because there is just an absolute feast for us to digest in this film. So let's get into it real quick by way of brief recap. Okay. And of course, per usual, spoilers always.
Spoilers ahead.
All the time. All the time.
We warned ya.
So we pick up on nowhere the giant head of a severed god that the Guardians have turned into their home base, right? And we get introduced in short order to Adam Warlock, who comes down, wreaks holy havoc, badly wounds our guy Rocket, and we come to find out that as the rest of the Guardians are trying to take care of Rocket, Rocket has a freaking bomb attached to his heart that if he is operated on medically in the depth necessary to save his life, his heart's going to explode. It's kind of serious. So the Guardians go on a quest to save our guy, Rocket. They encounter the High Evolutionary, who, as it turns out, is the. Is there any other phrase for him other than mad scientist? That's what he is. He's a mad scientist, right? Responsible for Rocket's creation. And in so doing, we uncover as the movie unfolds Rocket's backstory. And we find out that Rocket was created by the High Evolutionary in an ongoing effort by the High Evolutionary to create the perfect, flawless society.
It's like if Charles Darwin got his hands on meth and then just decided to operate on every animal.
Yeah, not pretty. Not pretty. Rocket's backstory includes the friends that he makes that are also in captivity, also being experimented on by the High Evolutionary. We find out that Rocket's friends were killed by the High Evolutionary. Rocket badly maimed High Evolutionary. So as we predicted, there's going to be some face
It
action.
wasn't a sad. It was not the face off that I expected because
Yep.
the face off that I expected is just going to be a robot face
Yep.
and not.
Yeah, it got more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll come back to that. So the Guardians do ultimately succeed at rescuing, at finding the information they need so that they can rescue, or not rescue, but rather give Rocket the medical attention he needs. They take down the High Evolutionary, stopping him from finally the vicious cycle of creation and destruction that he has been on. And surprisingly enough, all the Guardians are alive at the end of the movie, with the addition of Adam Warlock into their ranks, who over the course of the film has come into the fold. So that sounds like your foot just smoked a desk.
My foot did, but it's okay.
You have two of them. The one you lost
Yes.
just now, it'll be fine.
Surprisingly, didn't hit it that hard.
Yeah. So I'm painting in really broad strokes here because I know we're going to get down into the nitty gritty. But broadly speaking, Riley, and then what I'd like to do is kind of go character by character.
Mhm.
Okay. Broadly speaking, how did you feel about this movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3?
It is the MCU movie we've been waiting for since No Way Home. Where No Way Home
Yep.
was the perfect mix of humor and emotional weight. And there was that one turning point in the movie in No Way Home where it was just all emotions.
Right.
And the humor kind of came back, but not to that level.
Yep.
This was the same way, and none of it was forced.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautifully paced.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. Well, not weird. Let me go back. Let me backtrack on that.
You're good.
But yes, it's just the tone for it was so well done.
Yeah.
Emotional weight, all of it.
Yeah.
Executed perfectly,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back as to where my expectations were for this movie going in, because I think I've done a pretty good job personally of insulating myself from whatever the outside noise is regarding a movie. I just don't care anymore. I just care more about, do I enjoy it or do I not, right? Do the people that I, know like you and others that go to these movies that enjoy consuming this content, did they enjoy it or not? Those are the opinions that I care about. So I don't think I had pretty modest expectations. I thought it was going to be good. I did not expect it to be an absolute banger of a movie. And you mentioned No Way Home, and that's a perfect point of reference because I remember coming out of No Way Home and agreeing with you that is as good as it gets and has gotten in the MCU. And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is on that same tier of that is as good as it gets. And I think there are tiers of MCU movies where it's at that peak. There's a lot of good in the middle, and there's a few growing few fluffy bummers kind of at the bottom, right? This movie was it was tremendous, and you mentioned the tone. Absolutely agree. The balance that was struck between the humor that we have come to expect, and that is part of the Guardian brand, was still there. It wasn't sacrificed, but my goodness, it was partnered with a level of gravitas that few of these just movies in general are able to achieve. And I was absolutely delighted by it. This movie, on the surface, it has no business being that good. It's a movie about a raccoon that talks, and yet it was tremendous. It is, and part of what I'm looking forward to is watching it again and again because I think it is just a absolute masterpiece of storytelling. When you have these characters that are there's no inherent value in them. Like none of us before the first Guardians movie came out knew Star-Lord, Gamora, Groot, Rocket, any of those originals.
Projected to be the MCU's first flop.
Right. And it has been the exact opposite of that. And that is such good storytelling and it's such incredible character building that I just look forward to continuing. Like, I have not stopped thinking about the movie because I keep having, oh, yeah, new thoughts. Ooh, yeah, that's right. That's incredible. There is some real mastery at work there. So, hats off. I thought it was an outstanding movie. Outstanding.
Me too.
Yeah. 12 out of 10 if that's possible. 12 out of 10. One of the aspects of the movie that surprised me in a pleasant way is that we were very wrong at which characters were going to die.
So wrong.
I couldn't be more happy about that, by the way.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I really thought we were going to see some deaths. And to the movie's credit, uh, was possible on multiple occasions for I think just about all of the characters in the Guardians group that we've come to know and adore. But instead, what we got was beautiful resolution for all these characters. So let's go character by character, discuss them not just as it pertains to Volume 3, but the Guardians as a whole. So we'll go straight from the top with our guy, your best man, Star-Lord, Peter freaking Quill. What'd you think of Peter Quill in this movie, his trajectory and where he ended up?
Well, I mean, he really had his time to shine in the second one,
Yep.
where he kind of solves his issues with his dad, who's
Mhm.
a dick. But and then him in this third one, I thought it was kind of interesting to see how much his friendship with Rocket developed.
Mm,
I think that was the most surprising
right.
because
Right.
in the second one they are constantly
Oh my.
at each
Oh my.
at each other's
Very
throats
much so.
in a more like fun competitive way, but they are always talking shit to one another. And in
Yep.
this one, it's like they felt more like they were like brothers in a
Agreed.
sense.
Yeah.
And so to see that develop, and then for him to realize at the end of this movie that he has to go close the other door
Mm.
that he's left open with his
Yep.
grandpa
Yep.
and go do that.
Right.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, he pretty much became like the pinnacle leader
Yep.
and then stepped away from it all after he got it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think especially you juxtapose where he ended up with how selfish of an act it was, not in the Guardians movies, of course, but in Avengers Infinity War, when he single-handedly ruined the acquiring of the Infinity Stones by the Avengers on Titan by flipping his lid, losing control, and knocking Thanos back into full consciousness. Like a very selfish move on his part. How selfless he was in this movie. And I think you make a great point to step willingly, not have the leadership of the Guardians taken away from him, but to step away at his peak Like he had by the time this movie was over become a better and more selfless leader than at any point during the previous two Guardians movies or any of his actions or inactions in the Avengers movies that you saw the Guardians in. And so that to me is that much more noteworthy that he is willingly stepping out of that role of leadership because he had as much as any time in his role as their leader earned, right? Earned that role, earned the respect by his own personal sacrifice to the team. So that was a lot of fun to witness.
I mean, he almost died for it.
Yeah.
He almost died for it, and then
Yep.
and then in this last movie, with his arc with Gamora and like
Mm-hmm.
finally letting her go,
Right.
just yeah, really leans into the selflessness.
Yeah. Well, and it's good you bring up Gamora too, because she's, we'll just get right into it. She'll be the next character we talk about. Something that I really appreciated about this movie, it would have been so easy for the Peter Quill and Gamora, romance, that aspect of their relationship to take over the story, right? And it was there. It was not just forgotten about or ignored, or they went, yeah, we don't really want to go that direction, so we're going to kind of kick it off to the side. But they gave it the appropriate percentage of significance, right? Where it's a factor for Peter, right? At the beginning of the movie, he's just getting himself blind drunk every night because he's so distraught over the lack of Gamora in his life. But the movie doesn't overdo that storyline. It allows the main focus to be on other characters and other aspects of the story, but it's a really effective piece that allows Peter to transform in a really healthy way. I'm not as sure about if you're a fan of Gamora the character. I'm not as sure how someone and I feel fairly neutral about Gamora the character. Um, I don't know how you land or how you feel about this, right? Because I think she had a really, really enjoyable and intriguing arc all the way up to the time of her death in Infinity War. And so now that her character kind of gets this reset, um, I feel like she probably got shortchanged a little bit. I also don't know what on earth, James Gunn can do about that when the movie that he didn't make kills the character.
Right.
Right? And just resets it. Like says everything you just did doesn't actually count anymore. Like that's a real challenge. So
Yeah, she really got her time to shine in Infinity War.
agreed.
Thanos was her arc.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
eating her dad, helping kill her dad. That was what, and then ended up dying because of her
Yep.
dad. But like that was her and Nebula's thing. Their dad was an asshole,
Yeah.
and they wanted to kill him, or they wanted to get back at him in a certain way. So for this, bringing her back, I think, and the reset somewhat helps because it just develops that interesting part of the story.
Yep.
Because there's this little bit of conflict.
Yep.
Will they? Won't they? And
Yep.
they kind of develop the whole. Could be still there. Right at the end. Right at the end.
Right.
When he stops trying.
What a tease.
Of course.
Of course.
Right. So
Tale
it's
as old as time.
right. So for her, and
Suddenly becomes more interesting.
it was interesting to see her as the I don't want to be here character,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
I guess I'll be here. And then she enjoyed herself. She won't admit it, but she did enjoy herself.
Totally true.
So
just didn't want to admit it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I am glad. I'm glad the character of Gamora was brought back. Like it was, appropriately devastating when she died in Infinity War. But um, there's a role for her. There's a void that's there if she's not part of that group, right? And so I was glad that she was able to have a part in this third movie. And even though this version of Gamora was demonstrably different than the original version that we saw and got to know, I still enjoyed the heck out of her character. So I thought Zoe Saldana crushed it. She personified somehow, and this is a challenge for any actor, actress that's tasked with, okay, so you're this different version of your character. So do the same but also different. It's hard.
But I also think they like it that way because it keeps them
Probably.
from getting bored.
Sure.
You know, you look at Chris Hemsworth with
Yep.
Thor, he's like, "I don't wanna do what we did the first 2 times, so
Right,
let's
right.
go make Ragnarok," and it
Yep.
worked really, really
Yeah.
well. So I think
I just
and
think it's easier said than done.
Right.
I
Oh,
think
for
it's
sure.
difficult to pull off.
For
Totally
sure.
agree with what you're saying. Enjoyable from an actor-actress perspective. Yeah, I would agree. I just think it's difficult to do in a
Yeah.
convincing way. So I was impressed with her performance. I thought that was really solid. All right. Rocket. Oh my. So here's your Rocket origin story that you never knew you wanted or needed.
Best character development in the series.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Mhm.
I I am not and have never been, and I'll fully acknowledge, okay, this is going to be, I'm going to go a little bit broad here. All right. You've seen Friends. Do you
Mhm.
remember the episode in Friends where Chandler pretends to be allergic to dogs? He's not actually allergic to dogs, but he pretends to be allergic to dogs because he actually does not like dogs. And so, by pretending to be allergic to dogs and telling all of his friends, hey, I'm allergic, he guarantees that his friends will keep dogs away from him. Okay. Well, as it turns out, one of his friends has been hiding a dog where Chandler has been living for days. And so the friends realize, well, Chandler, maybe you're not actually allergic, but they haven't quite connected the dots yet. And Chandler feels bad that he's been lying to his friends. And so he starts to confess that, you know what? I don't like dogs. Before he can get the words out, Joey, his best friend, yells, don't do it. Like, don't tell that you don't like dogs. Because Joey knows this about Chandler, and he knows that as soon as Chandler reveals this about himself, that everybody else is going to just be disgusted with him. Like, how could you not like dogs? And that's exactly what happens. Chandler's like, no, Joey, I got to tell the truth. Guys, I don't like dogs. And everybody in the room is just appalled. Like, how could you, you monster? And Joey goes, told you. So I am now going to say that I've never been much of an animal person. Okay. I wouldn't say I dislike animals or pets. There have been pets in my life, but I also don't, in this stage of my life where I don't have a pet, I have no desire to have a pet. So my son really wants a cat. Okay. Hard pass. Hard pass.
At least he picked the low maintenance of the 2.
And still hard pass. He has asked about it not on a daily basis, but close to daily. In my office, I have a big whiteboard, right? That's magnetic. He drew a giant picture of a cat on a piece of paper and stuck it to my whiteboard with a magnet as a message to me of, hey, let's get a cat. So he's pushing hard for this.
Gotta give the kid credit.
Credit for the effort, also wasted effort because I'm standing firm. Heck no, we're not getting a cat. Okay, what the heck does this all have to do with Rocket Raccoon? I am not an animal person, okay? And yet I felt sincere emotion at watching this story about a make believe raccoon and his origin. Like when they showed young, I don't know if you want to call him baby Rocket, but shortly after he had his initial operation and he's got, blood coming out of the cuts in his head, and the first word that he says is hurt. It's like that's devastating. Like that is tugging right now at my emotions. It's like, oh, it just makes me want to do all of like the fatherly things when one of my kids gets hurt of punch whoever hurt them, which it never is actually anyone, so I can't actually hit anything.
I'd love to kick a 3-year-old, but besides the point.
Right? Attack something and yet hold them, bandage them, and yet yell at something. It's just a weird set of emotions. But this movie did that with a freaking raccoon. It's all CGI. It's all make believe, and yet it was so sincere. It was so real. Incredible. Incredible. I didn't know I wanted to see Rocket's origin story. I wouldn't have told you that. But now that I've seen it, I want to re-watch that origin story because what a phenomenal tale. Incredible.
Well, and then Yeah, so his character arc throughout the Guardians movies is phenomenal because of that backstory.
Right.
Because you look at the first one, he doesn't want to open up to anybody.
Yep.
You look at the second one, he has a problem with losing people.
Hmm.
Infinity War, he loses everyone. He's the only one in the Guardians that
Mm.
lives.
That's
And
right.
then he deals
Yeah.
with that again. So he loses everybody. And then he has that whole thing where he goes with Thor. And he's like, "You think you're the only one who lost anybody?
Hmm.
I lost my entire family as well. So what are you, you're not the only one that should be crying right now." And then to have him come back in this and realize this is why the way he
Yeah.
is the way that he is, and he's finally like grown past this point of like, oh, he's accepted that,
Mm. Yeah.
he can actually have more people in his life.
Yeah. And what makes it most impressive is he has had this loss, experienced that loss, and I think this is true, and this is probably part of what makes the Guardians as a group such a worthwhile group of characters to be around. All of these characters, Rocket probably to the most extreme. All of these characters have lost so much and so many people that have mattered to them, and yet they don't stop opening themselves up. That's extraordinary. And that is very relatable. That's very human because everyone has been hurt by someone else before. And what you have to realize in life is that it is a choice because you're just gonna get hurt. Like you can't not get hurt. That's gonna happen. So it becomes a choice of and there's a little bit of it that's kind of insane if you think about it too much, but you have to willingly put yourself in those situations where you could get hurt. Not because you want to, because that's just part of how you get to the reward of the deep relationships that do make life so meaningful, right? Those genuine connections with others that give life meaning. Because the alternative is uh, somehow worse, right? Isolation, and that's devastating in a more, an even more complete way. And so that is, but Rocket's story is that to the absolute max, right? And this makes me want to go back and rewatch the first and second Guardians movies just to observe his character
Right.
more. And this is part of what's so unique is we don't usually don't get origin stories like this, right? Where it's the third movie down the line and now we're backtracking to the character's past. I cannot think of a comp actually.
Well, it's weird because I was watching this movie and I was like, I want more Rocket
Mm, yep,
because
yep,
while he's on the coma bed,
yep.
yes, we get flashbacks of him, but we're
Right.
still not getting those interactions,
Yep.
which I thought that was like a weird thing. It's like this movie is all about Rocket, and yet I want more Rocket.
But
So,
it's a good observation though.
right,
Yeah. Yeah. You get actually little screen time with, full grown, fully developed who we know. Like it's
right.
yeah. And I thought they struck a really good balance of it can be tricky doing flashbacks and doing them effectively without it interrupting the flow of the movie. I think Batman Begins does that masterfully. There's a lot of flashbacks in that origin story. Um, but I thought this movie is as good of an example of how you do flashbacks well. It was every time it was a cutaway from the present to Rocket's past. It was somehow the flow was just uninterrupted and, in fact, heightened. It was incredible, really incredible. Anything else you want to say on the Rocket topic?
Oh,
Yeah,
it's good.
yeah, incredible. Okay, Groot. Groot hulked out a bit. Right at the weight
Drew
room.
got through. The
Tree
minions.
roids.
Yeah, I know.
Groot got tree roids.
Yeah, he did get tree roids, and it was awesome. He was snorting that fertilizer, dude. Huge, huge in this movie. It was awesome. It was such a nice change of pace, though.
Oh, yeah,
I like
agree.
him
I
better than
agree.
Groot from Groot Volume One. I
Yeah,
like this version
yeah,
of Groot the
okay.
best. And
I do too.
and by the
I do
way,
too. Yep.
Groot at the end of the movie going for the King Groot vibes.
Mhm. Mhm.
He looks wise and swole.
Mhm.
It's like
Heck of a combo.
Gandalf mixed
Right.
with the Hulk, but a tree.
The wizard and the Hulk
Yes, one of
give
those
you Groot.
one of those tree people from Lord of the Rings, but swole. Right.
Swole and not slow.
Yeah. Yeah. But
No,
no, he was awesome. His character progression is really simple. You just watch
it
him
is.
grow up.
It is.
But phenomenal.
Yeah. Good to get away from the sapling that he was
Thank
in volume
God.
2. Good to see him grow beyond the teen angst of the end game
It
or
was funny,
Infinity
but
War
I'm
and
glad we
Endgame.
didn't get in a whole nother movie
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, that wears on a person fairly quickly, and I really enjoyed. Yeah, there's just not a lot of character development that takes place with Groot, so we won't spend a whole lot of time on it from that point of view. But the dude did level up from a oh my, you can do this. Like he's housing all of the guns, and then cuts loose
Badass.
with at least 6 arms.
It was
That's
badass.
incredible. And he's shielding Star Lord. And yet that takes some cognitive awareness to be able to shield your partner and yet wield 6 different firearms at once. It's incredible. Very big respect
You
to
know,
that. And the tree wings.
yeah, sweet.
Didn't see that coming,
Mm-mm.
but I bought into it.
Right. Well, it's so refreshing because you always get one guy that's the muscle
Mhm.
in these teams, right? You have the Hulk who's just a big guy,
Yep.
right? You get
Yep.
the Thing who's just a big guy, but he rocks instead of green, right? So it's nice to get another big guy,
Mhm.
but instead of just being made of wood, he can do a lot of different things.
Yeah, he's got some versatility there.
Right.
Yeah.
So refreshing.
I agree. I agree. Great creativity. So Groot was a lot of fun to watch. That's for sure. All right. Drax, last member of the original Guardians crew, not the last character we'll discuss, but last member of the original from Volume 1 Guardians crew. Drax the Destroyer. Um, Listen, he's my favorite Guardian, and he has been my favorite for different reasons. I loved in Volume 1, I loved how anytime they were in a fight, he was laughing. I thought that was just freaking hilarious. Or in a fight, or crashing. Like I remember in the beginning or very early in Volume 2 where they're crash landing and Drax is holding on for dear life to the tether that is outside the ship and just getting smoked like tree by tree by tree, and yet laughs when it's all over. Like says that was awesome. Like, what just a goof of a character. So it tickles me in the right way.
But for the most part, for him too, he was pretty steady as a character.
Also true.
Like
Yep.
he was the
Yep.
most consistent. I feel like.
Very
I
much
mean,
so.
he did go for like this very like. I think he loosened up a little bit
Mhm.
as the movies went on.
Yep.
Because he was
Yep.
pretty
He's pretty tense.
pretty wound up.
Tightly wound.
Yes.
Tightly wound
And
very early.
right.
Yeah.
But I think you see him fully like unwind.
It's a good point.
But
Yeah. Yeah, but there wasn't like demonstrative, wow, Drax was here at this stage with his character, and now he's here until how about volume 3 with Drax? That was it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. The line, my favorite line personally from this movie, the one that I will cherish the most is when Nebula is telling him, I believe it's Nebula. I think I'm remembering that right. It was either Mantis or Nebula, but I do think it was Nebula. Is telling Drax, it's like, you weren't made to be a destroyer. You were made to be a dad. Like that line crushed me. That just hit me right in the heart piece. Right in the heart piece. But before that line, right, you see Drax interacting with such tenderness for the children that the Guardians encounter that have been enslaved by the High Evolutionary, and how he's able to bring ease to them, right? This huge hulking, like marked up beast of a dude is the one that is able to relate to and comfort the children most effectively. That was really cool. That was really cool. So it gave him a layer that was beyond just straight up butt kicker. And yet, boy, did he kick some butt in this movie. Did he toss some fools around? It was so much fun to watch. It was like Drax was unleashed. It was great.
It was pretty
He just
great.
went to town. Went to town.
It's always fun to watch a guy go in and his weapons are two knives because you're just like, this guy likes to be up in your face when
Yep.
he kills you.
Yep.
So yes,
Yep. He's rumbling.
him and Mantis, where they do the thing where the guard falls in love with him.
Yep.
He's like,
Yep.
why do you do this
Every
every time?
Well, and speaking of Mantis, we'll get into her as well. Like, what an unexpected, effective, like, duo, right? They've had a rapport, those two characters, Drax and Mantis, ever since the character of Mantis was introduced in Volume 2. Speaking of characters that I never thought I'd care to, like, have around, Mantis. But I've enjoyed her.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed her a lot.
her powers are hard to get used to
Sure.
because they're like,
She's that character, and this is also a key in just about every group. There's that character that if you think about it, you're like, there's no way you should be surviving this. Like Hawkeye in the Avengers. It's like,
right.
Okay. It's cool that you hung around for one movie, but how are you not dead somewhere early in the second movie?
You just can't
You
miss.
can't keep up.
That's your thing. You
Right.
can't miss.
Right.
Her thing is, I can make you happy. I can make you sad.
Confused.
Right.
Right.
It's like,
Put you to
what?
sleep.
What?
Right. But the hand-to-hand skill, it's like, well, they let her do a little bit of that, but that's the hardest to believe. Mantis can effectively punch or kick somebody and
Right.
have it be, genuinely impactful. But I enjoy her character and the dichotomy that she has with Drax, and probably where her character gained the most value in my eyes in this volume 3 was how necessary she was to help these other characters develop, right? She helped pull Drax out of his just knucklehead destructiveness. She helped him do more than that. She helped Nebula in a very similar way where she's calling Nebula out like, hey, you're a jerk. Quit being a jerk. Nebula's been allowed to be the jerk, probably because everybody's kind of felt sorry for her. Like, yeah, well, your dad Thanos was crappy, so we understand you're just bitter and angry always. And Mantis was like, no, do better. Do better. And as a result of that, Nebula was able to do that. So Mantis had a very like a genuine necessary role. Like there was some utility to her character, and that was pretty impressive, I thought. And speaking of Nebula, I mean, I thought she was dead a long time ago, or was going to be dead a long
Right.
time ago. Boy, has she come close to dying
Well,
multiple times.
Talk about the most character progression, probably outside of Rocket. She went from being a bad guy
Yep.
to being kind of a nuisance to
Part of the team,
right. Well,
but then her multiversal bad guy,
right, fighting herself, and then fighting her dad and fighting herself, and then realizing I will no longer be what I was. It was literally a
Wow.
physical representation
Wow.
of beating your old self and changing for the better.
I don't even know. The common phrase is, okay, a double agent. I don't know what you would call her. Like, is she a freaking sextuplet agent? Right? I mean, the number of times she has been or hasn't been, and then it's been the original Nebula and then the multiverse version of Nebula from the past. Wow. And how about a character that I never would have guessed would have had that much significance? Right?
Right.
And it has always actually worked. Like in Infinity War, it worked. In Endgame, it worked. In Volume 3, it works again. Craziness. Real craziness. I did like, this has nothing to do with her character progression, but I did like the level up she got with the arm. That was pretty sick.
That was pretty sweet.
That was nice.
Well, I think the most interesting thing about this movie is her and Gamora switched places.
Yep.
Like she was the good sister, essentially,
Mhm.
calling the other one out for being dumb. So it's kind of interesting to see that change.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And she was like a key part of the team.
No kidding. Yeah. They don't win. They don't succeed without her as part of the crew. No doubt about that. Cool. All right. So a little bit of a two-parter here. Last character we're going to touch on that's a part of the Guardians. Kraglin, it would be, insincere to not also mention, of course, Yandu, because Yandu was the bigger part of the group, not much part of the group, but adjacent in Volume 1. Became part of the group in Volume 2, died, saving our guy Star-Lord. Kraglin takes on the Arrow mantle, kind of literally. You know, um, I don't have a whole lot to say about these characters. Yandu, if we were talking Volume 2, would certainly have a bigger,
Right.
bigger place, in this movie. But I did like that we saw Kraglin see Yandu. I thought that was a nice little wink nod to
We
that
did call
character.
that. That was the only thing we got right.
Yep. We got one thing right.
One thing right.
Yep.
No, to be honest, I thought Cosmo was more interesting than Kraglin.
Yeah. At least Kraglin, you weren't forced to
Dude.
have a lot of Kraglin.
Psychic dog,
Mhm.
10 times more than dude with needle. So,
Who
no.
pulls needle out of his haystack?
Right.
No one cares.
No. I liked Yandu as a character.
Yeah.
It was sad to see him die.
Yeah.
But after that, I'm like, and this has nothing to do with nothing against Kraglin, but at the same time, it's like,
Not a very compelling character.
if you weren't related to the director, I don't know if your role would be as significant as it is.
Go back to being a weasel.
Again, not a knock on Sean Gunn as an actor. It's more of that character's importance in general.
Yeah.
It just kind of felt shoved.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. So sorry, Kraglin, but it is what it is. So that's the original group of Guardians. Now, a couple other characters we need to hit on just a little more broadly. Adam Warlock was in this movie? Adam Warlock was in this movie.
Dude, I bet Adam Warlock fans, and I think I said this last pod, I'm going to be pissed.
Yep.
Because that's not at all the Adam Warlock that should be on screen by any means. You can tell that there's going to be intelligence there, but just by the way he speaks. But
in the future, in the distant future.
Right. It's weird to think he's technically still an infant. He still hasn't fully
I love that.
grown.
Love that.
And it don't get me wrong, it worked for this movie, but this is not the Adam Warlock I would like to see go up against a Thanos, okay?
Right. Yeah, very different iteration from what you'd get in the comics from the character, but this is one of those instances, and it just truly depends. It's a case by case. This is one of those instances where I don't have any personal expectation of what the character is, what I would like the character to be. I know a little bit about what Adam Warlock, quote unquote, should be based on the comics.
Right.
But case by case, movies, are their own version of these characters. And so I enjoyed this version of Adam Warlock. I thought it fit, and it kept, probably why I enjoyed it as much as I did, was he was really there as a plot device, right? He was there to hurt Rocket at the beginning and save Peter at the end. Two necessary things that had to happen.
And then joins the Guardians.
And then he joins the Guardians, right? I didn't want this movie. I don't know how this movie becomes very interesting with Adam Warlock being a more significant part than playing what he had to play.
Well,
so it was fascinating. They actually, they tied him in very well to the High Evolutionary.
Right.
That was probably the most significant piece out of sight of the hurting of Rocket, but that comes because the High Evolutionary has kind of sent him on the chase to try and find Rocket. So that was probably the most compelling aspect of his character, is that connection to Rocket. He is one of the High Evolutionary's creations, in a sense.
Right. If he wasn't in this movie,
it
would have been okay. It would have been fine without him. But I don't know. I feel like for me, Adam Warlock was a missed opportunity for Infinity War and Endgame. Just because of his significance and tie to the Infinity Stones.
In the comic storylines.
Right.
Yep.
So
And
For me,
weirdly
it's like,
enough, like he was teased in Volume 2, which was before
oh, plenty of
Infinity
time.
War and Endgame.
So just weird that this is when we get him. So I don't know what their plan for Warlock is, if there is one. But yeah,
Yep. Yeah, agreed.
oddly timed.
It is odd in that respect. And it does make you wonder, right, with as much time as there was prior to Endgame and Infinity War, if part of one of, let's say, the original drafts of that massive story incorporated Adam Warlock. Because I remember the end credits scene in Volume 2 teasing in a very direct way the emergence or the creation of Adam Warlock, and to have it not had that was back in what, 2017?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. So to have that much time pass between that end credits tease and to have the culmination or the reveal, I should say, of the character, um, that's not necessarily on brand with Marvel and with MCU, I should say. And so I have a hunch that at one time Adam Warlock was going to be a significant part of that Infinity War Endgame story. And then as redrafts take place, they go,
Can't fit him in.
we don't have a place for this guy. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. Okay, speaking of, hello, High Evolutionary. Whoa, what a phenomenal villain!
Top 5 MCU villain,
No
I
doubt.
think.
There is no doubt.
Yeah, that dude. By the way, one of the coldest one-liners for a villain was the line about how he's like, "There is no God, that's why I became him." Holy shit!
Yikes.
And screaming at the top of the lungs while he's doing it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
No, he was one of those villains where you're supposed to hate him.
Yep.
You do hate him.
Yep.
Because I remember being in the theater watching this, getting genuinely pissed. I was like, I hope he dies.
Yes.
He's one of the villains. I'm like, I hope they
You
kill
actually,
him.
right, you actually want him to die.
I want him dead.
Yes.
And very few villains am I like, oh, I want, like most of them, I'm like, oh, bring him back. Bring him back. This guy, I'm like, kill him.
Yes.
Kill him dead.
Yes.
He's a bastard. He's
Yes.
dead to me. How dare you pick on this raccoon?
Right?
You son of a bitch.
Right?
But I digress.
No, don't disagree with anything you said, and that is effective villainy, right? Extraordinarily effective. And you hate him, but you also understand him too, right? He's not just this agent of chaos. There is rationalization behind his actions, behind his goal and his method. And part of what you and I have talked about already, pre-pod, what was awesome to me about this movie, and perhaps the highest praise that I can give to it, is the stakes in this movie for the Guardians had nothing to do with saving the universe. Right? And that was certainly part of the case in Volume 1 and in Volume 2 when they're going up against Ronan, who wants to destroy or take over the whole universe. Ego, same agenda, a little different way of going about it, but same deal. In this case, the universe is not at risk. Their friend, Rocket, is at risk. And because they're trying to save their friend, they encounter and have to stop this madman whose influence, for as powerful as he is, he's not trying to, to take over the universe. He's not trying to recreate an entire universe. He's just trying to, and it's not necessarily small, but relatively speaking, it's a smaller goal. If he's trying to create a perfect society, so he's taking these creatures, he's taking these worlds, manipulating them into something that they weren't before. That's it, right? There's no universal implications here. And yet the gravity of this story, the stakes, I don't think have ever felt so high in a Guardians movie in particular, and in many, many MCU movies. And that is awesome. Awesome storytelling. He was a terrific villain. Terrific. Now, one thing that we did get right is his face was coming off.
Oh, for sure.
His face was coming off. I loved the balance of how difficult of a villain that he was to defeat, and yet the satisfaction I gained when the Guardians just took him down.
He got molly-whopped, dude.
They all got their shots in. All of them.
He got
their
jumped,
hits
dude.
in.
He walked into the
boy.
wrong alley
Oh boy.
and got jumped, dude.
It was awesome.
It was phenomenal.
It was awesome. And for as much as I do want to see this movie again, I don't want to see his face off again. That was gross.
Yeah, Rocket did a number on him.
Oh,
I didn't think it was that bad.
Right?
I did not think it was that bad, but
Right?
it's. Ooh, but jumping off that point,
Yep.
the fight scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I always talk about Aquaman when it comes to fight scenes for some reason because I remember how
That's a good comp.
because I remember how fluid those fight scenes were.
Yes.
That was this level.
That's a really, really good comp.
Taken to another level because they're not balancing 3 characters in a fight. They
Correct.
are balancing 7, 8 characters that are a team, and it's fluid, and they're bouncing off of each other throughout the entire scene multiple times. That's incredible.
Totally agree.
And also, the walk-in. They have one every movie. And when he goes, I'm tired of running. And they play the Beastie Boys, Don't Sleep, No Sleep Till Brooklyn in the background. Hell yeah, man. I'm like, let's go.
Goosebumps right now, like recalling that scene in my mind. That was incredible blend of soundtrack to visual. That was incredible.
It was awesome.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, that's a great point on your part. So many of these, we have seen our share in the time that we've been doing this pod, right? Let's just limit it to that. And we've seen our share of action movies where the action has sucked.
Right.
You've heard me rant, like, if you're going to be an action movie, you got to have at least good action. Like, I will forgive you if your story is thin, if your character development is meh, if you can at least, because, again, it's all an identity thing. If you're saying, hey, we're here to be an action movie, you got to have quality, original action. It can't be generic, forgettable. Oh, boy.
At least 3 hand-to-hand fights and at least 1 huge explosion.
It was incredible. Yeah, it was outstanding. So many memorable, wonderful action scenes. So
it's fantastic.
Friggin' top notch. Okay. One other thing I want to hit on with Guardians 3. The Suicide Squad was in Volume 3. Okay, here are the characters from James Gunn's directed Suicide Squad that I recognized in this movie. Okay, and I'm going to name them by their Suicide Squad names. Ratcatcher 2.
Yep, I saw that afterwards.
Yep. TDK, or Arms Fall Off Boy.
Oh yeah, Nathan Fillion, for sure.
Fillion, yep. Harcourt. I think it's Amanda Harcourt in the. She's one of Amanda. No, it's not Amanda Harcourt. That's not right. Harcourt is her last name. She's one of Amanda
James Gunn
Waller's.
wife.
Yep,
Yes.
Amanda Waller's cronies. Now James Gunn's wife.
I recognized her right
Volume 3
away.
gets shot in the leg. Like tough. Weasel. Sean Gunn. That is Weasel. Now here's one that could be really easy to miss. King Shark.
And we're back. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
All good. Okay. The last member of the Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Very easy to miss. King Shark.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone. He's the voice of King Shark.
It's true.
Sly Stallone.
They also had the other guy from Peacemaker.
Oh, really?
Yes, I didn't pick up where he was at, but I only saw that from the internet.
That's fine.
I did not pick him up in the actual movie.
No, that's okay. I'm not pretending to have a comprehensive list here, but these are at least the ones that I picked up on whilst watching. So
Right.
I do enjoy that when directors and various actors and actresses are consistently partnered with each other. I get a kick out of that. That's a lot of fun. Christopher Nolan does that in so much of what he does.
He's in love with Cillian Murphy.
Yes.
And rightfully so.
Rightfully
so.
Good choice. Right. Great guy to fall for, I think. So,
Yeah. As far as we can tell.
As far as we can tell. All right. Anything else, Riles, that you want to say on Guardians 3 in particular before we move on from that as a topic? Anything we haven't hit on that you want to hit on?
Yes, because my topic can be saved for another day.
Okay.
So, yes.
Save it then. Now, pull the lens back a little bit and go a bit broader here. James Gunn, this is his swan song. He's out of the MCU now that he has put Volume 3 out there for us to partake in and enjoy, and is transitioned into the DC realm. And obviously, he's been doing the DC job full time now, but this is the true break for us common folk, as we can understand it, from James Gunn from the MCU into the DCU. I can't help but wonder 5 years from now what we will think the ramifications have been from when James Gunn was temporarily let go. And it was between volumes 1 and 2, right? Or was it after volume 2 that
Is
the
after volume 2 because they
was
didn't
it
know if
okay?
they were gonna do a third one.
Okay.
I believe.
I think you're right, and I haven't taken the time to go, do a little interwebbing and refreshing my memory. But beside the point, really, the fact that the MCU made such a quick and misguided decision, I will be fascinated to see from a historical context how this plays out. Because again, I can't emphasize this enough. This guy was given the nobodies in the MCU roster and turned them into one of the best trilogies of films and best sets of characters that we have had in the entire MCU. Now he's gone. That's quite the roster hole to fill if you're the MCU and you're looking for directing talent. Because clearly this guy is committed to the superhero movie genre since he's stepping into a heightened role with DC. I don't know how I feel still about whatever his role is supposed to be with DC. I think it's a different challenge, so I'm not feeling, I don't think yet, any different about how I have felt up to this point about James Gunn and his role with DC. I'm still fairly skeptical. Um, but to contradict myself, I also am probably feeling more optimistic than I have at any point coming off of that movie because my gosh, if that's what the guy can do with the Guardians of the Galaxy, what's he gonna do with the whole DC toy chest to play with?
Yeah, like, am I excited about a Superman movie now? Because that's what he's gonna be doing. He gets an actual
Mm-hmm.
player on the board.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Agreed.
So I'm looking forward to it. I think
Yep.
more than before this movie. I
Totally.
guess.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
I guess I just forgot what James Gunn could do with a movie.
Been a while
He
since we've
showed.
seen him do his thing, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think he just showed his range in this too. Holy
Mm,
crap!
yep. Yeah. And I think I'll need to personally remind myself to give him time because the gravity that we felt in Guardians Volume 3, right, doesn't come without Volumes 1 and 2. It doesn't
Right.
come without everything that
Right.
came before. So it does take time. But it's also okay and appropriate to have the expectations of, listen, when you, James, start cranking out DC films that have your, if not your hand directly involved as a writer or director, but your endorsement, expectations should be not low. He needs to deliver. Whether or not he will certainly remains to be seen. But it leaves, I think, the MCU in a really challenging spot. Not impossible, not saying it can't be done, but they are in a transition period where everybody that delivered great movies for them um, in that director's chair isn't a part of that crew anymore, right? James Gunn, Russo brothers,
Whedon.
right? Joss Whedon has burned his own bridges, so good on you, bud. Uh, but yeah, the individuals that carried the most influence and significance, and Taika Waititi,
He did have a smaller run,
yeah, he
but a
had
run
his,
nonetheless.
yeah, he had his shot, took it, and I don't think he really hit it there. Uh, so they've got to develop new talent. Can it be done? Of course. But I think they're left searching at the moment. So fascinating to see how that develops and plays out. Anything else on that topic from you?
No, I think
Okay.
we're good.
Well, let's keep moving. Like we said, there was a lot to talk about with Guardians 3. To kind of branch off of that topic, typically, as you faithful listeners and viewers know, we enjoy doing a JP and the Beans top five. We're going to fudge the rules a little bit for this round, and we're going to stretch it to a six rather than a five slot. Because with Volume 3 being released, we now have a total of six either individual characters or, in the case of the Guardians, group that have had trilogies, at least. Some have had a fourth. Looking at you, Thor. But it's a great opportunity to pull back and look at that. Now, we're not going to include the Avengers movies because that's such a broad, big, that's almost includes everybody, right? So we're going to scale it back just a little bit. But it's now an appropriate time to ask ourselves the question of, all right, which characters' movies have you enjoyed the most? So, per usual, these are our personal preferences, right? This is not what we're saying that you or anyone else should have as an opinion or preference. It's just what we have enjoyed the most, right? So, here are your candidates, right? You've got Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Ant-Man, Spider-Man, and the Guardians of the Galaxy have all had at least three movies. Thor is the lone wolf with the
This is so
out there.
Isn't that fascinating?
It
He's
is.
the one who gets 4 movies,
It
and
is.
then Ant-Man is in
I
there.
can't believe Ant-Man has one movie. What's three?
I know, right?
Continues to perplex and astound me.
Like, 3 of these make sense.
Uh-huh.
Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man. All make sense.
Yeah.
Other 3?
No.
What?
No. No, it absolutely does not. Guardians, Ant-Man, Thor.
Daredevil doesn't have a trilogy?
Correct. No. Just
Crazy.
truly, when you sit back and ponder that, out of all of the Marvel characters that are available, it is actually wild to think of that in that context. So we're gonna take a little more time here, go in a little bit of a deeper dive in. Not true to form. I want us to reveal, hey, here's our tops, our top six, or the rankings that we provided for them, and then kind of go through them piece by piece. So a little less of a surprise here, but I think a fun opportunity to dialogue on why we have these folks arranged the way that we do. All right. So I'll go first. I'll go through my whole list and I'll have you go. I'm going to start from bottom to top. All right. For me, Thor is safely at number 6. So bringing up the basement. Thank you, Thor.
The only one with 4 movies.
Yep. Quantity did not do him favors in this regard. The 5th spot, Iron Man. All right. With Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3. The 4th spot, Ant-Man. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantumania. The titles get longer, as it turns out. Spider-Man. Number 3, with Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. Guardians in the 2nd slot with volumes 1, 2, and 3. And then for me, Captain America is my number 1 with First Avenger, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. So there you go. Riles, let's hear yours.
At number 6, I too have Thor.
Great choice.
Number 5, I have Ant-Man. Number 4, I have Iron Man.
Yep.
Number 3, I have Cap. Number 2, I have Spidey. And at number 1, I got Guardians of the Galaxy.
Love it. Okay, so let's take it from our guy Thor, since we have some common ground there. He's firmly at the bottom. And that's not to say that all of his movies are bad. This is just personal preference. What have I enjoyed the most? I really enjoyed Ragnarok. It wasn't, I don't hold it in as high regard as others, not because I hate on it. It's just not my personal, oh, I really love that movie. It's really good. It's entertaining. I thought it got too goofy, but it didn't overcorrect or overbalance like Thor Love and Thunder really did. So I thought it probably found as good and as enjoyable a tone as it could. But holistically, like the first Thor movie, just okay. Thor: The Dark World, also just okay. But neither of those am I ever eager to like go back and rewatch.
They, for some reason, they never found their footing with Thor. And I've said this over and over again, and I will continue to do this.
Yep. Yep.
It should have been their Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Thor should have been their Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
There is so much lore
So
and
much
mythology
Yes.
to Thor,
Yes.
where the main villain in the first one was Loki and his dad.
Right.
Loki's,
Loki and Laufey.
Loki
Right.
and Laufey,
Yep.
technically,
Right.
but Loki better,
Yep. Yep.
which Loki's great
Yep.
as a villain. Number 2, Malekith, who
Mhm.
no one cares to remember, who's supposed to be kind of
Just
more
a
of a threat.
disservice to the character.
Right.
Yes.
Hela, they landed.
Yep.
Hela was the only one they landed.
Yep.
She came in, established dominance, and then they butchered the butcher.
Oh.
So I just don't understand it from that standpoint. I don't know how you miss that many times.
You know what they were never able to do is, to your point, and it's a good one. There is a lot of mythology there that they could have gained just so much traction from and so much storytelling opportunities from, but they never found a foil consistently for Thor outside of Loki. Like whenever Loki and Thor weren't together or weren't at least on parallel planes, it just didn't, it lost a lot of its luster, right? Yes, Malekith is the main villain in Thor the Dark World, but Loki has a huge part to play. Same in Ragnarok. Loki is a significant character in that movie. And then Thor Love and Thunder, Loki's not a part of it at all. And you feel it in his absence, right? But here's the thing, that doesn't have to be that way. I mean, crying out loud, in the comic with Thor the God Butcher, Gore the God Butcher, when Thor's battling him, Loki's not part of that at all. So Loki is not a necessary piece of, hey, if Thor's going to be there, Loki must also be there. It's kind of similar to Batman, where the Joker is the ultimate Batman villain, right? There are plenty of other compelling and worthwhile foes for Batman to tangle with. Thor's got a similar dichotomy with Loki. Loki's always his peak villain, but there are so many other villains, so many other adversaries that are worthwhile, and geez, they just never got it right.
No.
And they killed them off pretty much too quickly every time.
Maybe they need to see if Peter Jackson's available.
Yeah, because I agree. I think there was a missed opportunity there. So it's a bummer because Chris Hemsworth has done an outstanding job with the character, and in the Avengers movies,
Only thing holding them up.
yeah, in the
Chris
Avengers
Hemsworth.
movies, he's been phenomenal. So too bad that on the individual front, his movies have been somewhat lacking. So let's do Ant-Man next. You have Ant-Man
At 5.
in the 5 slot. For me, it's 4, which kind of surprises me.
You have him over Iron Man?
I do. I do.
We just have him flip-flopped.
We just have him flip-flopped. And for me, Ant-Man, the entertainment value is just a little bit more consistent. Not once does any of the 3 Ant-Man movies reach a, wow, that tier of this is as good as it gets, right? The first Ant-Man movie, okay, it was good. Ant-Man and the Wasp, also good. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, King was awesome. And there are other parts of the movie that I enjoyed. A lot of questions, but overall I enjoyed it, right? So there was never a movie in that Ant-Man trilogy that I went, to.
Yeah.
You?
Well, I would agree. I mean, it was. I think Wasp should have been in a suit in the first one. Looking back, I think it's great that they established Ant-Man in his own movie, but I think she just give her the suit in the first one. I think, but like that's another thing. You look back, the first movie, you have Yellow Jacket, which was kind of a play on an actual Marvel character, but like in a unique, different way, with their own created person to wear the Yellow Jacket suit. And he was an okay villain.
But just okay.
Number 2, couldn't even tell you who the villain is in that one.
Right.
Ghost.
Right.
Ghost.
But very much like very
sympathetic.
Villain, very soft villain. Right. The villain that's not really a villain.
The fact that she's coming back to me is like, eh. Right? But then the third one, you got You have Kang, which is strong,
Yep.
and say what you want about MODOK, not a bad villain
It
either,
worked.
but it was also just the Yellow Jacket guy coming back.
We have to rabbit trail for just a brief moment. How bizarre is it, Riles, that the same studio that crafts these empathetic, believable, extraordinarily detailed and real raccoon, rabbit, walrus, and otter Photoshop a human face stretched out onto MODOK.
Because they probably do
I mean,
not.
again, I thought it was hilarious, but it was also bad.
They probably don't pay their CGI people the money that they should. They probably don't give them enough time like they should.
Yeah.
And then they get rushed. The
Uh-huh.
whole Phase 4, rushed.
Yeah.
We can go back into how bad She-Hulk looked
Microwave.
off the get-go.
Yeah.
That's their own fault.
I
But-
just had to bring that up.
but-
on that. Yeah.
Ant-Man fit its vibe better than Thor, which is just idiotic.
Wow. Right. It shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen. Yep. Yeah. Okay. All we need to say about Ant-Man. Iron Man. You got Iron Man in the 4 slot. I've got him in the 5 slot. And I do that. And I don't feel great about that. I could flop that around. So,
But
I mean,
in,
Iron Man 1 is incredible, right?
Right.
That's, again, there's that tier. As good as it gets.
but in your defense, Iron Man outweighs the rest of the movie
Yep.
in both 2 and 3.
Mhm.
Iron Man 1, him versus Obadiah, is amazing.
Yes.
Him trying to craft his own suit.
Oh,
He was a very good villain. The turn at the end on Tony,
Yeah.
realizing he orchestrated the whole thing.
Great.
Brilliant.
Great storytelling.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
You go to 2, where you have Whiplash, which, again, I think was a great choice for an actor to play him.
True.
But they
Yeah.
did not do him justice in that movie for some reason.
Yep.
And again, Hammer?
Justin Hammer.
Justin Hammer
Yeah.
was not a bad villain. And I
No.
don't know if it was the fact that they tried to shove them both in the same movie and it just didn't play well.
Yeah. I think Iron Man 2 also got caught, and this wasn't its fault. It got caught in the Avengers movie is coming out soon, so we need to do some world building, right? So we got to
Right.
introduce Black Widow. We got to give Nick Fury some more time and remind everybody that he's there, because nobody actually knows that he's there unless you stayed for the end credits scene in Iron Man 1, which those didn't exist.
Right.
Thing, and so most people left.
Right.
So I think that was probably what held that movie back as much as anything.
And it has arguably the most iconic suit up scene for Iron Man with the suitcase armor.
It's a
The
great-
suitcase armor still gets talked about, and it's arguably the worst Iron Man movie. So make that make sense.
right.
But the
Right.
fact that he wasn't the first person to come up with the arc reactor, and it was
Mhm.
someone that Tony's dad knew,
Right.
like,
Old Soviet scientist had a
brilliant.
yeah.
Play
There-
off
yeah,
that more.
There were good pieces in that movie. It just never quite hit a whole stride, and especially coming off of the expectations from Iron Man 1.
Right.
That's tough to top. And Iron Man 3, like, I think I like it more every time I rewatch it.
I love when he calls in the Hall of Armor.
Yep.
Coolest fight scene. One of
Yep.
the coolest fight scenes
Yep.
there are. Him hopping from one suit to another as that guy just tears him apart.
Yep. Yeah, the awkwardness with Iron Man 3 is, whereas Iron Man 2 felt so necessarily connected to the wider and growing Avengers world, Iron Man 3 felt weirdly disconnected, because it ends and it's like, oh, he's retiring? He doesn't need the arc reactor anymore? So he's saying he's out. So he's out, and then he's very much not out in Age of Ultron. It was such a clunky, and the MCU didn't do this again. But that was again, I feel bad for that movie, because it felt like it had to, as the oldest kid, it had to teach his parents how to parent, right?
Right.
Parents go, ooh, that didn't work.
Well-
Okay, next kids, we'll do that differently.
And Killian, I didn't care about.
Yep. Correct.
Like, he was just kind of there. I wish they would have played more into it. Like, Cap had Hydra. It would have been cool to see Iron Man have AIM.
Right.
AIM would have been perfect for this movie. And it was teased about, hinted at that he worked for AIM. But that wasn't the focus.
Right.
So that was odd to me, just a little bit.
Yep. Here's really who it should have been. The villain should have been Ezekiel Stane, Obadiah's son. Because in the comics, Ezekiel Stane, that is an awesome comics run. Iron Man, The Five Nightmares. That is where Ezekiel Stane is out to just tear Tony Stark down to the studs. And he has what Killian, the extremis, that is a big part of what Ezekiel Stane perfects. And he develops these human bombs, which is what they do in Iron Man 3. So they did it all without Ezekiel Stane. It would have been so much more impactful if instead of this, they tried to make Killian an empathetic villain with his initial interaction with Tony, but it just didn't quite work.
Or, you could have done the Mandarin and wrapped the 10 rings up in that trilogy.
Yep. That
would have been phenomenal, but why would we do that? Because it would have also been cool to see tech versus magic. That would have been brilliantly done.
There you go.
But for some reason, we don't want to do a comic accurate Mandarin, and we want to put on an actor in that movie who plays the Mandarin. And by the way, if you remember those movie trailers, I was hyped for Iron Man 3. I'm like, oh, they're doing it. Ben Kingsley, fantastic actor. I mean, obviously, he's not Mandarin at all. Still dope.
It was a bold swing, and it was also a really clear miss. It was just it didn't land. It was one of those, yeah, okay, we get it. You explained it. It's a joke. We're not laughing.
But Tony outside of the suit in that movie, fantastic. Showed he was just as good outside of the suit as in it. So
Agreed. Agreed. I think those three, right? The Ant-Man movies, the Iron Man movies, and the Thor movies, those are a clear, okay, here's your bottom half tier. Now, the upper crust, this is where it gets. This is good, right? And I can certainly see rearranging, my order sometime down the road. But let's, we've spent a lot of time on Guardians. Let's spend a little more time on Guardians. Okay. Just to put a bow on it for the Guardians. What an incredible set of movies, Riles. I probably watched the first Guardians movie 3 or 4 times in theaters because I was just so enthralled. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, it was a space odyssey epic with characters I'd never heard of before, and I was just delighted to be amongst them.
In a weird way, it was probably my generation Star Wars.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
But, I mean, and for the most part, they put out bangers for villains. Ronan
was underutilized, but he was a good villain. He was effective.
Not terrible, but not the best. But you also had multiple antagonists in that one movie. You had Ronan
Nebula was very antagonistic.
Thanos' presence was there, and you also had Yondu going after Star-Lord in that one.
Right.
Pretty good if you think about it from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Ego, and the effect he had on Peter, brilliant. And then we just talked about the High Evolutionary being a top 5 MCU villain all time, currently at this point in juncture, and the effect he had on Rocket, not only it's impressive to have good villains, but ones that affect the heroes to that extent is something to say.
That's a mark of a good villain.
Right.
Or an effective villain, I should say.
And the character growth with them as a unit, as individuals, well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
No, totally agree. I want to end on Spider-Man, so let's hit Captain America next.
Agreed.
Winter Soldier is maybe my favorite individual MCU movie.
Oh yeah, arguably.
It's so much fun and so easy to go back and rewatch. as many times as a person could possibly want to. Um, First Avenger, I was lukewarm on when it first came out. I gained a greater appreciation for it once Cap's arc wrapped up with Endgame. Now I go back and rewatch First Avenger and the seeds that are being planted and cultivated and growing from that first movie, whether it be with Bucky or with Cap's just you know I'm out of man out of time scenario or his romance with Sharon. It's great. It's more enjoyable to watch that movie in light of what came after it. Standalone, I don't think it's terrific. It's good. It's also effective. And then Civil War is terrific. I love most the dynamic with Cap and Bucky in Civil War. Civil War gets pretty big, right, with all the characters in it. But I really, really enjoy what stays at the heart of that movie, which is the Cap and Bucky relationship.
See, and I mean, first of all, Red Skull, first one, fantastic.
Mm,
Art villain that you want to die, right up there with High Evolutionary,
Yes.
right? Number 2, Winter Soldier. Again, we talk about relationships with the hero.
Yep.
That's up there. Watching your
No
best
question.
friend become a villain that he
Yep.
doesn't even know who he is anymore. That's
Right.
terrifying.
Right.
Civil War is where it gets interesting for me because I almost can't count that as a Captain America.
It's hard. No, it's hard to. It's more an Avengers movie than a Captain America movie.
Right.
But then if you call it an Avengers movie, you probably have people say, this is more of a Captain America movie than an Avengers movie. So it's kind of a branding problem. It's like no matter what you designate it as, it's probably close to something else.
But it's like, it almost feels like Cap got robbed of that
I agree.
third. Like, I wouldn't have minded it being more focused on him in that movie.
Same.
Like, if they would have just labeled it Civil War
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
focused it on everybody involved. I mean, that's kind of what they did already, but I think that's
I know
why
where you're coming from.
I think that's why I put it at 3. But Zemo, fantastic.
It was.
Like Cap's trilogy hit
Yeah.
every villain.
Yeah.
And I think First Avenger is underrated as
Agreed.
well
Yeah.
because that whole point of that movie is it doesn't take a good soldier, it's a good man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It sets up the soul of the MCU.
for sure.
Yeah. Good things. All right. Spider-Man. What a great trilogy. And I didn't see that coming.
It really is. It really is.
It's great. And it's so unique because it's almost an inverted origin, right? Where we start with
It is an inverted origin.
the character,
It's-
right, who is, he's in existence, he's been around, and it's almost this inversion where you get his origin.
He wasn't
and
fully
you bring him-
Spider-Man yet.
Weirdly, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet he had more resources.
Right.
With Homecoming coming on the heels of Civil War, and then Far From Home after Tony's passing and Tony trying to give Peter the mantle of the smart tech, and then to have No Way Home bring it back to how about an Aunt May sacrifice? We don't see anything of Uncle Ben, that the Aunt May sacrifice, the absolute delight that I still have to close my eyes and go, yes, it was real, of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man coming into the fold. Incredible.
And to be like his Uncle Ben,
Right.
essentially,
Yeah.
they kind of, well, I mean,
No,
Aunt
you're
May-
not wrong.
Aunt May is the Uncle Ben
Yep.
in this version of Spider-Man.
Yeah, but they take part of
the
that role as well, the
mentor
mentor
role,
piece.
yes.
No question. And where we end that trilogy, to have Spider-Man back at his roots, where he doesn't have the technology, he doesn't have the resources, he doesn't have friends, he's isolated, and that is such a core part of Spider-Man's character from the comics, is the isolation that comes with accepting the mantle of the hero. That's reality for most heroes that aren't named Tony Stark.
Right.
It was incredible character development, and I won't argue with a single person, including you, that goes, no, that's that's the best, or that's my favorite. It's a great choice.
Well,
It's a great choice. It's a worthy choice. You put that on that in that spot, and I go, yeah, that's a great choice.
but and even with it, like, because you can make the argument that it didn't really feel like Spider-Man until No Way Home.
Mm,
But if you think about it, they really leaned into his villains
yep,
and nailed it every
I
time.
agree.
Michael Keaton's Vulture, phenomenal, and
I
they
agree.
didn't kill him.
I
Jake
right.
Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, what a douche. And it landed well.
It was great.
He played that so well.
Totally agree.
The CGI stuff, the robots,
Yeah, it
masterful.
was great.
And it made sense because you see that, and from the comic standpoint, you're like, well, how does he do all the
Yep.
illusions and
Right.
stuff in this situation?
Right.
For him to bring it to this scale, impressive. And then No Way Home,
Mm.
giving us Doc Ock again with Alfred Molina.
Can't believe
Willem
that. Still
Daf-
can't believe that.
Willem Dafoe coming back and being like, you thought Alfred Molina was the best villain in the Raimi trilogy? Let me remind you who I am. And comes in and tears it up. It was phenomenal.
Agreed.
Electro, Sandman, Lizard. I'm like, it's good to see him, but
Sure.
like, I'm not like,
They weren't. Fortunately, it wasn't forced, right? Where we had to get a lot of them. They were there
Right.
for enough.
you weren't at watching the Statue of Liberty fight, waiting for Sandman and Kobe go at it. You were waiting to figure out when Willem Dafoe was going to decide to make his appearance in that scene.
Correct.
It was phenomenal.
Yep.
So, yeah,
No, totally agree. An outstanding trilogy. And I think what's enjoyable is as the MCU grows, right? There are growing pains taking place now. But to bring this pod episode to a close, to bring it back to what we started with Guardians 3, there's still hope, right? There are still going to be some really good movies that we're going to see out of the MCU. And I think realistically speaking, there's also going to continue to be some myths that come out. Because I think the box has been opened and cannot be shut in terms of the sheer quantity that we're
Right.
going to get. And when you're churning out that much quantity, it just can't be, they can't be killers every time, right? But I do think that I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that there is course correcting that is and will continue to take place with the MCU of not rushing, of slowing down, of reminding themselves of the value of the quality over the quantity. Because listen, us fans, we're here. And so if a movie has to get delayed for it to be its best version of itself, I'm going to complain about it getting delayed because I'm an impatient person. But the reality is, it's actually not going to matter. I'm going to enjoy more the quality, and I'm going to forget that it was ever delayed in the first place, right?
right. Well, and I look back at it now. I look at Phase 4 almost as like a test phase.
Very much so.
Because if you think about the first 3 phases, they had multiple characters that they could rely on for a franchise.
Yep.
They had your Guardians, you had Iron Man, you had Captain America, you had
Guardians.
Thor, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, and yep, Guardians is a fine example.
Mhm.
And then Spider-Man, but
Yep.
after that, you're like, where do we go?
Yep.
Because they don't know who to go with next. Because let's
Yep.
say for some stupid reason, Sony doesn't re-up a deal with Disney.
Sure.
They don't have their Mickey Mouse anymore.
Yep.
So now they have to find their new Iron Man, their new Captain America, their
Yep.
new Thor.
Right.
Who's that going to be? Because we still don't know.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi hit, but can you get a trilogy out of Shang-Chi that's interesting enough to bring us back? Because look, I'm not hyped for Shang-Chi 2. I'm going to go watch it. It's the same with the Marvels.
Yep.
Captain Marvel, second one's coming out. I'm not like, sweet, Captain Marvel 2 out in theaters soon.
Yeah.
I know Spider-Man's going to be there.
Right.
He has to be there. I'm going to be super excited to see Spidey again in theaters.
Yeah.
That's my guy.
Yep.
They need to find their other 2 to 3.
Yep. Kind of those rocks.
Right.
Those foundational pieces.
And we can finish it here, but I think it'll be Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
I think it has to be Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
I think a lot is riding on that franchise.
Feels that way right now,
Right.
doesn't it?
I think Fantastic Four has to hit.
Yeah.
So I think you have Spider-Man. I think you have Marvel's first family.
Yep.
You got to get the X-Men going soon.
Mm.
I'm not hitting the emergency button yet, but I would be in panic mode because there is a lot of potential in the X-Men that you're not hitting right now that you can totally hit.
And it's there, right? The rights issues are resolved. They're all yours. So why not?
Deadpool 3 is going to hit it. And
Yep.
it's going to blow it up. And they're going to have to do something with it. And if they don't at least put Ryan Reynolds in more things with Deadpool, missed opportunities.
Yeah.
You know? So
that's perhaps there's reasons to be optimistic. There's reasons to be pessimistic. I think the greatest reason for pessimism is you've had an entire phase, right? And you're coming out of that phase 4 into phase 5. Have you left yourself with anything, like have you established anything really solid that you can build off of? I don't think it's a firm yes. I think there's small bits and pieces, but there is a lot of assembling that needs to take place. So, and it can happen. The characters are still out there. They're still available, right? They haven't killed off
right.
a bunch of characters.
There's potential, but like, I mean, even Doctor Strange. I feel like that's a missed opportunity right there too. Why are you not announcing a third one already?
Yeah, correct.
So
Correct.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I think that to try and end on a positive note, what this reminds me of is, my gosh, there's a lot of great stories within this massive story. A lot of great chapters within this massive story to watch and enjoy. And I'm not going to regret it if the MCU kind of burns from here. That'd be a bummer. But I have been so blessed by so many of these stories, by watching them, discussing them with you and with others, that man, I'll keep rewatching and having those conversations. So there's a lot of great content there. It'll just be fascinating to see what happens in the months and years to come.
Worst case scenario, you take 5 years off and you hard reboot.
Comics, man.
Right. So.
No question. All right, man. I think that's what we got. That's great.
All right. Well, if you like that content, make sure you follow us on TikTok at Magic Beans Productions. Follow us on YouTube, JP and the Beans Talk. We're everywhere.
You're welcome.
In the podcast world. If you like listening to me talk and you want to hear me go general, go check out Spill the Beans.
Yes.
Make sure you type in my name because apparently there are 1,800 podcasts with the name Spill the Beans.
Unacceptable.
Right.
All inferior.
Right. So make sure you check that out. I think that's it. On that note, Godspeed.
Love it.